Hey, Plattman here. So I don't have any excuse for why it's taking so long. I sound this way because I did a video and I got close to the end and my puppy was making so much noise I had to put him outside. So that's why I'm a bit like, I'm not even annoyed at him. He's just a puppy. He's adorable. I love him, but it's just like frustrating. Anyhow, none of that matters. So I got in trouble today because I read a book, or technically I listened to an audiobook. And the reason why I got in trouble is because I had agreed with my wife to read it as opposed to listen to the audiobook. But anyways, we're going to just do a book review on it because, whatever. By the way, I have been reading a lot of books. I know election season is coming, and I'm sorry I've been a little preoccupied with personal stuff, with confronting you guys, which is just me being honest, and with work. And none of those are excuses. Like, I have had time and ability to make videos, and I have not done that. So, sorry. I am on it. I'm working on it. I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's a fear thing or something else. So the few people who actually listen to these videos, watch these videos, however you want to consume them, appreciate you. Yeah. Anyways. Okay, so book review. Effectively, we're doing a book review for The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I got in trouble because I was supposed to read it, didn't read it. I listened to the audiobook. I think it's 3 to 5 hours. I don't really remember. It's very easy. Use the Libby app. You can get it for free. Not a problem. Those of you who don't know, the Libby app is... it's basically a library card. You go get a library card, you download the Libby app, Libby, and then you sync up your library card with the Libby app, and voila, you can listen to bajillions of audiobooks. I also found out that on Spotify, they also have audiobooks for free. So if you have Spotify, you can do that as well. Anyways, frankly, I don't like the book. I don't. Last year, we did Frankenstein. Maybe it was Dracula. I don't know. Last 2 years we did Frankenstein and Dracula. I like both those books. I thought they were very interesting. And I also like the modernization of those stories. This is a very compressed story, hyper-focused on this certain thing. And I didn't like it. It was so weird. I was expecting there to be this monster and this thing and this almost like a werewolf thing, and it really wasn't that. And I'm trying to think back on like a time that there was a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde movie, and I kind of understand why Hollywood has had a hard time dealing with this, because there's not much to the story. I think it's like a joke. Like, the whole thing is like, oh, I'm this posh British guy, and I'm not even doing it correctly. It's this very polished, very correct, very just so. I don't sweat. If I go outside, I put a hat on. Everything's like to the T, to the letter, and because this is a lawyer, 18th century, whatever, 19th century. I think 19th century. Britain, London, this guy, lawyer, and he just seems like a hyper affluent dude who's like, oh, whoa, my friend's kind of acting weird. I should investigate this. Oh, and there's like a series of events that get to that, and then you get this reveal. It's not really a big reveal because the author like hid the big reveal by this other thing and all this other stuff. So it's kind of like a weird journal confession the whole time, and you feel very twice removed from the actual situation. So I felt like I was lacking. I was like, I want to know what kind of things Mr. Hyde's doing. And it's like, oh, well, the worst thing Mr. Hyde did is he like killed someone in public with a cane. And I'm like, well, that's bad. But that's it. Oh, well, he also did a bunch of debaucherous and like bestiality type things, and maybe not bestiality, but bestial things, as in like his internal urges and implying like going around having sex and stuff like that. But it's said in such a posh way. So you as a reader, you're like, I don't know. What has this person done? Like, bro, what the heck? And I want to say this, from like as a kid, everyone wonders like, oh, what superpower would you have, right? Well, the concept of being able to take this thing, because it's a potion, take this potion and totally be someone else, like look like someone entirely different who has a different personality, but you can remember everything they do. I mean, in theory, someone can use it as like a heroic thing, but realistically, it's like, no, you're a villain. And the guy does use it villainously, but there's so much capacity for it being transformed into something that's awesome. And it just wasn't. It just, the author really buried the lead. Like the definition of burying the lead, where, hey, I'm going to have 3/4 of this book do the lead up, and then on the reveal of all the thing, I'm gonna like just have text, just verbiage, cover up, and no specifics, everything that this entity, Hyde, has done. And then you're left at the end. And you're like, okay. What did I just read? What is this? This is a nothing burger. And I one thing that fascinated me, and that I almost want to write it because I think it'd be interesting, is there is this dichotomy between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, Jekyll is hyper-personal, sociable rather, and then Hyde is this like super evil entity, whatever, totally recluse. And I had this epiphany and this thought. I was like, well, what if you kind of made like a story about dudes and their guy friend who always goes out with them and is like super, buoyant and fun and, yada, goes out with the boys all the time. And then all of a sudden he becomes like a recluse. And then suddenly he goes back to normal and then he becomes a recluse again. And have the reason for that to be he like got in with a relationship and like found the woman he liked. And that's what it is. Like, so, pardon me, his Dr. Jekyll is like hanging out with the boys, and his Mr. Hyde is in love or with this girl, and that. And then have the final act, which is really not, in my opinion, properly demonstrated in the book. And in my story, I think it would be fascinating to have the final act be like, oh, I found a way to like be there with my boys and also help my boys acclimate to like having a woman of themselves and becoming less the boys, and like, hey, now we're all like having couples and living that life. Anyways, and so it's kind of like a reference, a joke to this concept, whatever. So that was one thing I was thinking of. I was also thinking that in general, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is like a preamble to the Hulk. And there's lots of other animated examples that utilize this concept of they are one thing and then they become something else. I just felt like it was such a letdown. And it might just be that I'm spoiled with modern and 100 year later of all this other science fiction and fantasy books, movies, whatever, comics, that I've kind of heard the story done better. And so this being like the original was subpar. And I'm not trying to be an asshat. I just didn't like it. It was short. I didn't get enough of Hyde and what he actually did and what the what actually transpired. And I just felt like hollow at after finishing it. I was just like, I don't want to read this again. I wouldn't suggest it to people. I think it's a classic for a reason. But I think this is one of those weird instances where, like, I think it's a classic not because of its quality, but because it broached this subject of dual personality, and it did it and kind of like set the foundation for that. Not necessarily quality, but almost like, think of it this way. Instead of actually laying the foundation, I feel like what this book did was put sticks in the ground and lines in between the sticks, or wire or rope, so that later the foundation can be laid there. I think that's what this book is. This book is pre-foundation to the concept of dual personality and what are the effects of that. And in a weird way, I can totally applaud that, because I think that the author did a terrific job of that. I think elsewise, there's so many flaws, and it's so dated and so frustrating and so slow that, like, yeah, I'm listening to it while I'm at work and I'm like, okay. But it's not something that transcends time. It is extremely dated and extremely boring, and I just didn't care. And I wanted to get to the good stuff, and then when the good stuff came, I was like, wow. It's like doing Halloween candy and you just get toothpicks or floss instead of candy, which, by the way, that would be nice. I could utilize those. But, like, so I ate meat, so I have stuff in my teeth. But as a kid, you're like, that's not a thing. Anyways, I love you all. I'm going to be doing more of these. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm going to come up with I'm working on it. I love you. Please stick around. Yeah. Bye.